We're live again. Post-game, Timberwolves just finished off the Lakers. Michael Rand here. Ryan Kostecka is at Target Center. Star Tribune sports editor. Ryan, I got a lot of thoughts about this game. I'm sure you do too, but I want to hear first off, like, atmosphere, the building, like what were your takeaways from what I imagine is probably your first playoff game at Target Center, right?
Yeah, so it's been a crazy 24 hours at least for me. I mean, last night at XL Energy Center for the Wild game, that was amazing. That I really thought that was one of the best crowds I've ever been to for a playoff atmosphere. Then I come here and yeah, it's gonna be tough for Chiefs fans too. The atmosphere was incredible. The energy was unbelievable. You could tell it clearly helped for the Wolves when it mattered most. I think the Lakers did a good job of kind of taking that energy out a little bit. But man, the crowd was great tonight. It was sensational. Just a fun time, fun time to be downtown tonight.
Absolutely. It was getting dicey, though. It was, I think 103 with about 5 minutes left. That's when the game turned. Like, they had taken, like, LeBron had turned it on. He would make, like, a bunch of threes. He's just pouring it on, like, a logo three somewhere in there. It's just, like, all of a sudden it's vintage LeBron. Luka made a couple plays against Rudy. And then out of the timeout, they take Rudy out. They close with Nas instead. And Ant goes kind of just nuts for the last 5 minutes. That's ball game. I want to hear your thoughts on kind of those two things, and I'll get into it too.
I thought it was a really good move by Finch to close with Nas and Rudy. It doesn't surprise me really, to be honest with you. But I thought the way Luka started to attack Rudy is how you have to attack Rudy. You have to drive on him, and you have to get into his body to create that separation because he's so long. Luka really struggled with him on the perimeter. So once Luka did that on back-to-back possessions, those quick 4 points, I really like Finch taking the timeout, getting Nas in to replace him. That way you're switching everything. And the one thing that's going to kill you if you're the Wolves is the Lakers' ability to shoot a three. I mean, they were 17 of 40 tonight. Sorry to look at the stat there. They're 17 of 40 tonight. Unbelievable. Yeah. They missed their last couple, but still, you want to get the Lakers to drive. So I think it was a great move by Finch to do that. And, I mean, to me, the headline for me is this is the metaphorical passing of the torch. It felt like LeBron was incredible, but someone was better, in the clutch tonight, and that someone was Mr. Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, 100%, because he, like I said, 103, next possession out of the timeout, he hits the three. He's kind of like managing. I think it was Hachimura and Luka that were kind of doubling him, but then he kind of drifted off to the left. Luka's not tight enough on him. He pulls it in. That's his spot. He loves that spot, that kind of step back on the left side. That was a perfect shot. I think he hits Nas not too long after that for a three.
So, the next possession actually was my favorite possession by him. The shot clock was getting down. He pump fakes, drives. Just kicks out to Dante for an open three with that shot down. Dante kicks it to Nas instead, or Randall or someone, and it ended up being a shot clock. I think it was Julius. It ended up being a shot clock violation. Ant immediately goes to Dante and yells at him to shoot the something ball. But basically, that type of confidence he has in his teammate to make the right play, and the way he said it, knows he can talk to Dante like that. I know Chris Hine, our reporter, had a great story about his leadership. You saw it right there. That was huge. And then, he said, then the kick out to Nas, and from there it was on.
Yeah, 100%, because Nas makes that three. I mean, at one point on the broadcast, I think until like maybe until the very end, like he had scored or assisted on every single bucket in the clutch.
Yeah.
Rudy didn't take a single shot tonight. That's bizarre. He took 4 free throw attempts, only made one of them, a non-factor on offense. So if you're also thinking down the stretch, hey, you got to have one more guy who can score on the floor. It wasn't like Nas was having a monster game, but someone else is going to give you a little bit more potential there, and obviously that becomes a big deal. They go with a lot of DiVincenzo minutes, especially early. He plays 31 minutes. Conley only 21, but Conley wasn't bad. He had 9 points. I thought he did a good job playing defense on Reeves on a couple possessions. Reeves had to work for a lot of his stuff. I mean, what's super impressive to me is like this was the LeBron game that Chris Hine kind of talked about on Friday's podcast. Is like, can you withstand? He's going to get going at some point. He's going to start cooking. Can you withstand that? And they did.
It was incredible. It was, I mean, 40 years old and doing this. It's, to be honest, this is I've covered the NBA,
Yeah.
the Utah Jazz. There's actually been almost every arena done this. Tonight was one of the coolest I've ever seen from LeBron James. It just his ability to do this, and at 40 years old, and just take control. It was amazing. But like you said, I thought Mike played really well, and Pitch again. He's very, very smart, very in tune with what's excuse me, very in tune with what's going on. When Mike started getting targeted, offensively, made the switch immediately with Dante. I thought the bench maybe didn't play the most, didn't have the best stats, but they were phenomenal. Nas, Dante, they were all great.
Yep.
They gave great energy, exactly what you needed in that situation. I was just very impressed with the Wolves, their composure late. I thought Finch hit all of the right buttons when he needed to. And this is a really fun team. And when they play like this, it's really, really impressive. I will say, I didn't think Julius Randle played the best, personally. I thought he had a couple of questionable shots in there and just moments of the ball. Like when I think Ant hit back-to-back threes to start the second half, and Randle decides to take a corner contested three. It's little things like that might not hurt you now, but can later. But overall, I thought the Wolves showed a lot of composure late, and that was the big question. You got two of the best closers in the game, Luka and LeBron. Yeah. Who's going to close for the Wolves? I had the question on Twitter, and you get a lot of interesting responses, but the biggest one is Ant was the one who showed up, and that's what you need 100%. To see.
Yeah, 100%. We didn't know if they were going to be able to do that. We didn't know if he had that. We know he's a clutch player, but we didn't know if he had that. Against LeBron. Like this was this was exactly the game that you worried about if you were the Wolves, or if you were like watching this from a distance. It's like LeBron got cooking, and you're having to play clutch time. It's just a clutch time minutes, and it's like it's going down to possessions all around. Not only did they score plenty, the Lakers scored 1 point in the last 5 minutes. It was 103, was it not? And then it finished 116-104. So they closed 13-1 run, and that's your ball game right there. So I don't know if that's 100% sustainable. I hated their second quarter. I thought it was one of their worst quarters. But outside of that, their other three quarters were really good.
Yep.
And that's kind of their MO. But if they can be at that high level for at least most of the game against the Lakers, I think we know now at this point that they are the better team. I think we can see that. I think we can see that when their best is better than the Lakers' best. I think we've seen that completely. Enough through 3 games. But can they be at a high enough level for 2 more games in this series to close it out is kind of the next question.
I think it's going to be a really interesting question. It's a great question to ask. I go back a little bit to I want to go back to the clutch, those minutes right there. I thought the Lakers looked tired. I thought LeBron was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I thought LeBron looked very, very tired. A lot of those shots he was hitting earlier, they started coming up a little short, front rimming quite a few of them. And the Wolves just had this defensive tendency that the Lakers could not match by any means. That's what you need. I do think that I said it best. The Wolves' best is better than the Lakers' best. The one thing I will say, and which is going to be an issue for the Lakers going forward, was this is a game they had to win. You have to win the LeBron game. This is an old team that is struggling, in that sense. Now they play 38 hours later next day.
Yeah, 2:30. Yeah. 100%. We got let's run some questions here from the faithful. Old neighbor of mine, Tom, wants to know, how do the Wolves take advantage of the short turnaround for the next game? Play fast, use more depth? That's a good question. We kind of already addressed this a little bit with the question of how do the Lakers respond to having to play so soon, especially Luka. They reported he had a stomach bug in this game. He wasn't himself. What's he going to be like on Sunday? Is he going to be ready to go in that game? These are good questions. I don't know. I do think using their depth, I don't know that they go any deeper. I don't know that they go any deeper than they usually go on Sunday, Ryan, but I think Tom is right with his question that
I don't think so.
But they do have to take advantage somehow of the fact that they are the deeper team, that they are, the younger, fresher team. Like this should be an advantage for them playing, a quicker turnaround kind of game for them. After LeBron just played 40 minutes, Luka played 40 minutes while he's not feeling well. Everybody else is playing heavy minutes, stuff like that.
It's got to be, if you're the Wolves, you have to come out and punch them in the face immediately. That is going to be huge. You have to, get this crowd into it and suck the life out of them instantaneously. That's going to be huge, I think, for the start of Game 4. I mean, LeBron played 41 minutes tonight. Reeves was 41. Luka's 40. I mean, this is a team that's not very deep, that's not built to play these back-to-back, every other day games. So if you're the Wolves, that's how you take advantage of that, and you push the tempo. And I don't mean necessarily like getting out in transition a lot, but you push the tempo to force the Lakers to match up with you defensively, right? So if Ant gets that ball, kicks it out to Dante, Dante gets the ball in the front court a lot, very, very fast. So now all of a sudden Lakers, they can't set their defense up. They have to match. And then all of a sudden you're the Wolves, you're off and running at that point. So I think that's going to be very key for them early on. And that's going to be what's going to kind of, I guess, in a sense, flip the series, I guess, or win the series for the Wolves if they can take advantage of that and get the game 4 win.
Leaf says, talk me off the ledge, but the Wolves seem like the better team. Ryan, we already talked about it. They do seem like the better team. I don't think they shouldn't run away from it. They're not backing away from that. I think they think that. I think they know that. Now it's a matter of executing it, because the Lakers are certainly not just going to, fade away, roll away. You got LeBron, you got Luka. You expect to see more out of Luka, I think, on Sunday. So it's never going to be easy. But if you start from the point of you are the better team, that gives you, a fundamental confidence going into a game.
You're the better team. You're home court advantage right now. I'm not going to talk them off the ledge. I'm going to tell them to just, jump off the ledge backwards.
Just enjoy
into
it.
your couch.
Enjoy it.
Into your
enjoy
couch.
It.
Pour a glass of whiskey. Enjoy this. This is fun. This is great. This is Wolves basketball, and this is everything Wolves fans have been wanting to see. It's especially what Luka did last year in the postseason to them.
Yeah.
I would expect a very Luka-centric game on the Wolves, for game 4. But Wolves are the better team right now. They have the bodies to throw at Luka. For whoever asks the question, just enjoy yourself. Pour a glass of whiskey. Have one for us. We could use when it's late here. So, yeah.
My friend Tim says, will the Wolves and Wild both use the same parade route, or do you think the Wild will just stick to St. Paul? We love to kid. We love to joke. It's just 2-1 in both series. Both these teams came in as, prohibitive underdogs. But these, you were there both nights. I watched both nights. These were 2 fun games. Like the Wild, we're not necessarily specifically talking about the Wild here on this post game, but that was a great game Friday. I mean, it's Thursday. And then tonight with the Wolves, like, you brace yourself in this market sometimes for a letdown when
I've heard.
You've heard. Yeah. When expectations get raised. Those were meet the moment games from both franchises.
I will say this with the Wild, their game, Sarah McClellan, our Wild beat writer, insanely talented. One thing I will say is that I asked Sarah watching the game, I was like, why do the Wild seem just quicker, more athletic on the ice, right? Mm-hmm. And she made a point to me that this is the first time since November this team has been fully healthy. And remember that early start of the season, they were one of the best teams in the NHL. Yep. So if you're Vegas, you're like, gosh, this sucks now that you're facing a very healthy Wild team. For the Wolves, the one thing I've said about the Wolves, and I was telling my dad and my wife this is a Wolves team that they don't care if they're playing at target center or somebody's backyard. They will play any team anywhere, and they can honestly say they will not be afraid to go to Golden State, Houston, back to LA, OKC, the Clippers, Denver. They're not afraid to go to any team in the NBA, and they have a guy who every time they step on the court thinks he is the best player on the court, and he might be. He really might be, so who knows?
Yeah, he's definitely got the most energy at the end, that's for sure.
Yeah.
One more here. Mark says, what'd you make of the closing lineup of Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, Nas, Ant, and Jaden? And is this something they can do against a non-small ball opponent? That's a good question. I mean, right now they've got a small ball opponent, and they got to finish this off, and it's first 1 to 4. They still got 2 more wins to bank, but it's a lineup they've used. It's not something it's not something they haven't used before. They've still got enough height and length with that lineup.
See, you got the bulk there too. I agree with you. I mean, you're 6'11", 6'10", 6'9" between Nas, Randall, McDaniels, and then Ant is 6'5", but I mean he plays much bigger. I will say those 4, and you either choose Nikhil or Dante depending on what you want and who's feeling it. That is my favorite Wolves lineup they can have.
Me too, 100%.
I really think it's that's how they're going to close almost every game. That would be my guess. I think it's the way to go. And I think Finch understands that. And I think the whole team understands that as well. So I really do like that. I will say, I think one of the biggest things about that lineup, and it shows, is they rebound the ball very, very well for their size. And that, I think, is one of the biggest, outliers of tonight's game. I'm going to check the stats real quick. It was, rebounds ended up being tied 38-38, but the Wolves had 13 more possessions than the Lakers. It's not just 13 extra shots as much as it's 13 more times the Lakers have to play high-intensity defense. Yeah. And that wears them up their series. Shout out to the stats to my best friend Ryan texting me that, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I know, right? He's another basketball junkie, best friend of mine, so he knows what he's talking about.
Orlando, Boston is at the same place as this series, 2-1, and Milwaukee got one in the Indiana. So all these 2-1, but those were, the home teams that came back home, down 2-0. We'll have to see if those are ultimately gentlemen's sweeps. Game 4 going to, I'm guessing Game 4 is going to go to Boston for sure. I don't know about Indiana. Milwaukee could have something to say about Game 4 and hold serve there, but yeah, I watched the end of that Orlando Boston game, kind of waiting for the Wolves game to come on. Some fight from Orlando. It was interesting to see.
This is an Orlando team that's very, very good. I mean, the loss of Jalen Suggs is everything to that team. Yeah. He's so important, so valuable. I mean, once that happened, they dropped to the bottom part of like the Eastern Conference, you could say. But I thought, for the most part, they were probably the fourth best team in the East, in my opinion, with Jalen Suggs. Orlando's got a lot of fight. Franz and Paulo are, a tandem that you don't really want to mess with. But I'm counting a gentleman's sweep. I think Boston's going to pull it out. The interesting with Milwaukee, Indiana, is that Indiana is still relatively young in a sense. Hasn't really been there in that spot. I know they went to Eastern Conference Finals last year, but overall still relatively young. And for Milwaukee, I mean, Giannis is outside of his mind right now. He's incredible, but the longer that series goes, the more comfortable Dame looks. One of the best closers in the game. Can't really play a lick defensively, but Dame and Giannis are an issue. So if you're Indiana, you really want to close that series out as fast as you can. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of want Indiana to win the next 2 games just because all it was talking about is Giannis watch 2025. Right. That's going to be thrilling.
It is indeed. Well, thrilling should describe Game 4 Sunday. We will plan to do this again. We'll see if Shedeur Sanders has been drafted by then. I don't know.
Ooh, man. I never would have thought that. I mean, even LeBron's kid got drafted, right? Even Bronny got drafted.
Second round. Yeah.
Man, it's insane. It's
maybe Dion needs to be playing in the league still, I guess, to get his son drafted.
It's just not. I know he's talented, but it's just not worth. Personally, for me, it's just not worth everything that comes with it.
Well,
really, especially if he's not a franchise quarterback.
No, well, he's going to be a 4th rounder at best now.
You think?
Man. Yeah, at least. I mean, at best, that's where they're at in the draft right now. He hasn't gotten drafted yet.
I don't know if he's going to get drafted. I don't know. I have no idea. I think someone will take him. You have to.
So he's a talent enough, but yeah, it's
yeah.
I don't know.
Crazy.
This is fun. What a weekend, and it's only half over. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who submitted questions and listened in. We'll put this up on all the proper channels, YouTube, all the audio channels as well for playback if you want to listen to it that way. And we'll do this again in about 36 hours. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. See you then.